Do you remember the last thing you learned? Maybe a skill like cooking, or a new formula in math class, or a really interesting part of your family's history. Here's mine. I finally achieved real adult status and learned the difference between a Roth IRA and 401k. For the record, I already know that, but host Dr. Z is still figuring it out. And that's a huge weight off my shoulders. But here's a more interesting question. How did I learn that? And what made it finally stick? And how do I know that I learned it? In other words, how does learning actually work? Hi, I'm Dr. Emily Zarka, and this is Study Hall Learning to Learn, where we talk about what it means to learn and how to do it well. Which of the following scenarios is an example of learning? A. A student studies all night for their U.S. history exam. They ace the test but quickly forget most of what they studied. B. A budding chef wants to learn to make homemade pasta and they use ChatGPT to generate a guide for how to get started. C. A hockey player spends years practicing skills and techniques, building their mental and physical strength, and competing in different environments so they can always deliver, no matter what happens on game day. Well, that history student did what they needed to do to get the A, but they didn't actually learn the material because it didn't stick. And the budding chef might know where to start their pasta making journey, but they haven't actually done anything yet, so they don't really know how to make pasta. The hockey player, on the other hand, has put in years of work, practicing their skating and stick handling skills, shooting pucks, lifting weights, and working with physical trainers and sports psychologists. They know exactly what they need to do when it's time to put their skills into practice in a game. That's a sign of real learning, so the answer is C. C, learning is a process that leads to a lasting change in what we know or what we're capable of doing. Keywords: process and lasting change. In other words, learning isn't automatic or immediate, and we don't just demonstrate learning by getting an A on a test. According to the researchers who study this stuff, when you learn, your brain actually updates how it understands something, like an internal Wikipedia editor. Those updates mean that skills and information stick around longer. So when a new idea or skill actually reshapes how you think or behave, that's real learning. And the difference between real learning and cramming for a test matters a lot. Sure, sometimes your goal is just to get an A on an exam, get through a client meeting, or win trivia night, in which case cramming might feel totally adequate. But what's even more useful than knowing the exact date of the battles of Lexington and Concord for approximately 48 hours is understanding how to learn. Because when you know that, you'll be able to learn more efficiently and effectively. And you'll be able to apply your skills in all kinds of ways so that you actually absorb and retain the information. And then you can use that information and skill to relate with people, make decisions, adapt to new situations, and understand the world more deeply. Plus, the more you learn, the easier it is to learn more. You can build on previous knowledge and connect new knowledge and skills to old ones. It's kind of like you're building a knowledge web in your mind. Each new thing you learn connects to something you already know. The bigger your web, the more places there are to add new knowledge, and the more connections you can make. Think about it. If you can connect a new piece of information to 3 things you already know about instead of just one, it'll be a lot easier for that new information to stick. Take my newfound financial knowledge. Wink. At first, I just wanted to know about the best type of retirement account for me. So I read some articles about Roth IRAs and 401ks, but I quickly realized that I didn't have a great place to connect that information to my knowledge web. If I wanted to have a good plan for retirement, I needed to have a bunch of other stuff in place first. So I watched a bunch of videos, read a bunch of books, and listened to a bunch of podcasts about finances and budgeting. But I didn't stop there, just passively absorbing information. I also revealed all of my lousy attempts at saving and budgeting from the last 5 years to figure out where I went wrong. I talked with some of my close friends about how they handle their finances, and I met with a financial planner. Then I made a new plan. I wrote out my goals, took a close look at my income and expenses, and figured out which accounts would make the most sense for me and why. Then I set up direct deposits so that money is automatically transferred to my savings and retirement accounts. Plus, I made some pretty charts so I can visualize where my money's going. And so far, I've stuck with the plan. But I'll also check in with myself every month to make sure I still understand where my money's going and that I'm on track to reaching my goals. The point is, I engaged in a process to learn more about finances and budgeting. And I made sure I had my budget in place in my knowledge web before adding on the specifics of retirement accounts. I didn't just keep doing what I've always done, which wasn't working. But I also didn't just go to one source and expect to be a financial expert immediately. I asked questions, I thought about the information I was finding, and I tried it out. But I'm not finished yet. and I might make changes in the future if, say, my income or financial goals change. That's one example, but the process of learning can happen in a lot of different ways and in a lot of different scenarios. In fact, there's tons of research and a variety of theories about how humans process information and experiences, then turn them into knowledge. Like some people think we learn through conditioning and positive or negative reinforcement, while others focus on experience, hands-on experiments, or reflection. Those theories go in and out of favor and practice, and we still don't have all the answers about exactly how learning happens. But here's one thing we do know. Learning works best when you can engage with new information in lots of different ways. That's why it helped me to learn from a combination of books and videos and a financial planner and hands-on practice. It builds up more connections in the knowledge web. Our brains want to learn through many different experiences. And the more contact we have with new information through multiple senses, which is called multimodal learning, the more opportunities we have to retain what we've learned and apply it in new contexts. That also means I have some myth busting to do. I hate to break it to you. Actually, I don't. You're not an auditory learner, or a kinesthetic learner, or even a visual learner. You don't have one specific learning style. No one does. Sure, people talk about learning styles all the time, and they expect teachers to cater to specific learning styles so students can learn better. But that's not how it works. You might have learning preferences, like maybe you really like watching documentaries and you really hate reading articles. That doesn't necessarily mean you're learning more when you watch a documentary, and it doesn't mean you can't learn from reading. In fact, sometimes learning requires you to challenge yourself with a process or experience that's uncomfortable. Turns out there's actually no research that supports the idea of fixed learning styles, and it's been studied a lot. None of the research shows that students can only learn in one style, and it doesn't support the idea that students learn better when teachers cater to specific learning styles. See, learning isn't something that just happens to you at the hands of the right teacher or method or book or video. Instead, learning is something you do over time. And how much you learn from any class or assignment or experience is up to you and the way you engage in the process of learning. So you actually have a pretty big say in what and how you learn. And when you know how it all works, the learning opportunities are endless. One way to engage in the learning process and become a more effective learner is by, well, paying attention to your learning and adjusting your learning process as needed. When you plan, monitor, and evaluate your own learning, you can improve and update your strategies and behaviors to learn in a variety of contexts. So becoming a better learner starts with reflection. You need to be aware of what you know and what you don't yet know. So if we think back to the questions I asked in the pop quiz at the beginning of this video, that was one way to assess what you already know or think about learning. But you might also think about where you've had success or struggled in the past, like how I recognized that none of my previous attempts at budgeting worked very well. Then you'll think about different learning strategies and when to use them, like how I tried to learn to budget by listening to podcasts, reading books, and meeting with a financial planner. During that process, I could also monitor my learning by writing a summary of what I learned from each resource and making note of any questions I still have or things I'm confused about. And finally, you can evaluate and pivot to try something else if your first attempt doesn't work out. Like I'm checking in with myself each month to make sure my financial plan is still working. And I might think about which resources were most helpful. Maybe next time I skip the podcast or take notes in a different way so I remember my financial planner's advice more easily. You can do the same thing right now. Try writing a summary of what you learned in this video or what you're still confused about. Think about what strategies might help you learn more, like taking notes during the video or drawing a map of the process you've used to learn something. Sure, that all sounds like a lot of time and effort, but that's truly what it takes to learn. And the more you engage in this process, the more understanding you'll have of yourself and the strategies that help you learn best. And the more you'll be able to build on those skills to learn more effectively and efficiently, whether you're taking a class or starting a new job or finally getting your finances under control. When it comes to learning, we have the choice to be active participants in the process, or not really learn at all. And when we participate, we open ourselves to lasting changes in what we know and what we can do, which builds up the knowledge web in our minds and sets us up to better understand and participate in the world around us. If you're currently in or thinking about going to college, go to gostudyhall.com for more student resources and check out our $25 college courses. Thanks for watching. See you next time.